It was a rainy Tuesday in November. I remember the day clearly not because anything dramatic happened, but because of how normal it looked on the outside and how crushed I felt inside. I was sitting in my car in the Target parking lot, engine off, windshield fogging up from my own breath. I had just finished a full day of work, over 9 hours stuck behind a desk, nodding through meetings, answering emails I didn't care about, solving problems that weren't mine to solve. My head was pounding. My lower back ached from sitting too long, and still, I didn't feel like I had accomplished anything meaningful. All I needed was a few groceries, eggs, paper towels, maybe a frozen pizza. But before getting out of the car, I opened my banking app. I had $48.17 in my checking account. Rent was due in 4 days. And I sat there, staring at the screen, frozen. You know that moment where you're too tired to cry, but you feel that lump in your throat like your body wants to break? That was me. I wasn't in danger of homelessness, and from the outside, my life probably looked fine. I had a job, a 1-bedroom apartment, a decent car, friends I could text if I needed to vent. But inside, I was drowning. Not because of some single disaster, but because of everything. The constant pressure to work more, spend more, keep up, show up, perform. I was running in circles, and none of it felt like it was getting me closer to peace. The worst part? I didn't even know what peace would look like. I just knew I didn't have it. That night, I skipped the groceries. I drove home, microwaved stale leftovers, sat on the edge of my bed, and opened my laptop. I typed into Google, "Why do I make decent money but still feel broke and empty?" I was expecting articles about budgeting or side hustles. But what I found instead was a discussion thread where someone mentioned a book, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. The title hit me like a punch to the gut, because that was exactly what I was starting to question. Am I trading my life just to have some money? I ordered the book that night. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much. I thought it might be another save 5 a day on lattes kind of read. But when it arrived, and I started flipping through it, something shifted. Slowly at first, then all at once. This wasn't a book about how to get rich. It was about how to get free. And at that point in my life, I wasn't looking for luxury. I was desperate for freedom from this invisible grip around my chest, from the constant loop of working, spending, stressing, and repeating. Reading that book was like holding up a mirror to my life. And for the first time in a long time, I saw things clearly. This podcast is not a review of that book. It's the story of what happened next. Because I took what I learned and made some real, sometimes uncomfortable changes. And I want to tell you how those changes saved not just my wallet, but my mind, my energy, and my future. Before reading Your Money or Your Life, I thought of money as something I earned for my skills, and time simple as that. I clocked in, did my job, got my paycheck. What I didn't realize was that I was slowly bleeding out my life energy, the one resource I could never earn back. The book introduced this idea that every dollar you make isn't just income, it's a piece of your life you traded to get it. That phrase, life energy, hit me like a truck, because it forced me to ask questions I had never seriously considered before. How many hours am I really working when I include my commute, prep time, recovery time? How much of my life am I giving away just to earn enough to survive? And more importantly, what am I doing with the money I worked so hard to earn? Let me tell you what I found when I applied this. One Sunday afternoon, I sat down with a notebook and started calculating how many hours I actually devoted to my job. My 9 to 5 wasn't just 40 hours a week. It was more like 60, once I added commute time, after-hours emails, decompressing from work stress, and getting ready in the morning. Then I looked at my paycheck after taxes, after health insurance and divided it by those 60 hours, and suddenly my decent salary didn't look so great. I realized I was making less per hour than I thought, and the trade-off started to feel painfully unfair. Here's where it got real. I began looking at every purchase in terms of how much of my life it cost me. Not in dollars and hours. That 12 DoorDash meal, that was 45 minutes of life energy. That 180 impulsive Amazon treat-yourself order, nearly 8 hours of my life. That 65 candle I bought because a YouTuber recommended it, over 2 hours. That changed everything for me. I stopped seeing money as just money. Every time I pulled out my wallet or clicked Add to Cart, I paused and asked myself, is this really worth trading a piece of my life for? I'm not going to lie at first. It was annoying. I felt guilty for things I used to enjoy without thinking. But after the first couple weeks, something wild happened. I started feeling powerful. Suddenly, I wasn't just reacting to ads or stress spending after a bad day. I was making intentional choices. And that spilled into other areas of my life. Instead of spending $80 on drinks and appetizers every Friday night, I started cooking at home and inviting friends over. I said no to 2 weddings that would have cost me hundreds in flights and hotel stays, not because I didn't care, but because I realized I was buying back my time. And here's what shocked me. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I actually felt more present, more content. In just the first 3 months, I cut my non-essential spending by almost 40%. That came out to about $500 a month. I was freeing up not by working harder, but by living smarter. I used part of that to pay off one of my credit cards, something that had been hanging over me for years. I also started a small peace of mind fund. It wasn't a full emergency fund yet, but knowing I had even $600 set aside made me breathe easier. But the biggest win? I started to feel like I owned my life again. I wasn't a machine earning money just to keep up with bills and expectations. I was a human being learning to respect the time and energy it took to be alive. And you know what? That mindset shift did more for my financial health than any budget app or money-saving hack ever had. Because now, when I earn money, I think, how do I want to use this piece of my life? And when I spend money, I think, is this helping me build the life I want? Or just numbing the one I've settled for? That single lesson, the concept of life energy, changed my relationship with money from something stressful and guilt-ridden to something empowering. I'll never look at a paycheck or a purchase the same way again. There's a chapter in Your Money or Your Life that talks about something called the fulfillment curve. Now, don't worry, this isn't some fancy theory you need a business degree to understand. It's actually super simple and kind of life-altering. Here's how I'd explain it in my own words. There's a sweet spot when it comes to spending money. At first, spending brings comfort and joy, like buying your first mattress after years on a college futon, or finally getting a working laptop that doesn't sound like a jet engine. That kind of spending? Totally worth it. It improves your quality of life. But after a certain point, more spending doesn't make you happier. It just makes you busier, messier, and more stressed. That's the fulfillment curve. And I never realized how far past that curve I had gone until I saw it laid out in that book. Let me give you an example. I used to shop when I was anxious, or bored, or when I had a bad day. My go-to therapy? Add to cart. I'd convince myself it was self-care. You deserve this. I'd whisper as I ordered yet another gadget I didn't need, or skincare product I'd forget to use. And don't even get me started on how many duplicates I had. 2 humidifiers, 3 portable chargers, more throw pillows than one person should legally be allowed to own. At one point, I had 6 different subscriptions. I didn't even remember signing up for 2 of them. I was spending close to $300 a month on things I barely used, but I wasn't really aware of it. It was all automatic, emotion-led, unconscious. until I saw the fulfillment curve, and it clicked. Oh, I've passed the peak. I'm not buying joy anymore. I'm just buying clutter. So I made a new rule for myself. Super simple. Every time I felt that urge to buy something, I asked, will this add real value to my life or just temporary comfort? Am I still climbing the curve or sliding down the other side? One Saturday, I actually pulled everything out of my closet and put it on my bed. I made piles. Things I love and use. Things I thought I'd use. And things I bought because I was sad or tired or just had my credit card saved on file. That third pile was embarrassingly large. And you know what was wild? Looking at all that stuff didn't bring any joy. It made me feel trapped. So I started cleaning out, selling what I could, donating the rest. I canceled 5 subscriptions. I stopped going into Target just to look around. I unfollowed influencers who made me feel like I was behind for not having the latest everything. And over time, something amazing happened. My apartment got quieter. My mind got clearer. My spending got smarter. I began replacing emotional shopping with something that actually felt fulfilling. Walking, journaling, even just calling my mom for 10 minutes instead of scrolling Amazon. I learned to sit with discomfort instead of trying to swipe it away with 2-day shipping. Financially, I saved an average of $350 a month just by getting off the fulfillment hamster wheel. Mentally, I stopped feeling guilty after every delivery box hit my doorstep. I actually started feeling proud of how little I needed to feel full. And here's the best part, me life. Didn't get worse. It got better. I started enjoying the things I already had more. I rediscovered old clothes in my closet that I loved. I made room literally and emotionally for peace. The fulfillment curve taught me that you don't have to keep buying your way to happiness. At some point, real happiness comes from subtraction, not addition. Now, before I buy anything, whether it's a jacket, a meal, or a new gadget, I ask myself, is this above the curve or beyond it? Because the truth is, I don't want more stuff. I want more space, more calm, more intention, more life. I used to think tracking your spending was for people who were either obsessed with spreadsheets or already good with money. Neither of those sounded like me. I avoided looking at my bank account unless I absolutely had to. Bills? Auto pay? Credit card minimum? I'd just pay it and move on. As long as nothing bounced, I figured I was doing fine. But deep down, I always had this low-grade anxiety buzzing in the background. You know the feeling like something's off, but you can't quite name it. Like you're working hard, but you're still falling behind. I was afraid to look too closely, because I knew I wouldn't like what I saw. But then I read this line in Your Money or Your Life, and again, I'm not quoting it exactly, but here's what it said to me. You can't change what you don't understand. And you can't understand your money if you don't track it. That hit me. I was trying to improve my finances by guessing like driving with my eyes closed and hoping to land in the right place. So I decided to try it. I opened a brand new spreadsheet. Nothing fancy, just a few columns, date, amount, category, and notes. And I made myself a promise. For 1 month, I would track every dollar I spent, no matter how small. Even if it was just 2 for coffee. Even if it was embarrassing. At first, it felt awkward like writing a food journal while eating a pint of ice cream. I didn't want to admit that I was spending $90 a month on fast food, or that I bought 3 different streaming services and still watched the same shows on YouTube. But within 2 weeks, something shifted. It wasn't just numbers on a screen, it started to become a story. I started seeing patterns, like how I always spent more on days I felt stressed, or how I told myself I was too busy to cook, but somehow found time to scroll DoorDash at 10 p.m. I noticed I was spending more on things that gave me temporary relief, but very little lasting value. And that awareness changed the game. Instead of feeling powerless about money, I started feeling curious, and that curiosity led to control. I created color-coded categories. I looked at which expenses actually made me feel good, like groceries for home-cooked meals, or a gym membership I actually used, and which ones left me feeling guilty or empty. I didn't judge myself. I just observed. Here's what I found. Over the course of that first month, I spent over $400 on things I didn't remember buying. Not bad things, just meaningless things. A 19 planner I never opened. A 45 skincare product I used once. Multiple 9 charges for subscriptions I forgot to cancel. That $400? That could have gone toward my emergency fund. Or a weekend trip to visit my sister. Or, honestly, just peace of mind. But instead of beating myself up, I got excited because I saw an opportunity. I wasn't broke. I was just disconnected from where my money was going. So I made it a habit. Every Friday morning, I'd make coffee, sit down, and review my weekly spending. No shame, just data. I called it my money check-in. Sometimes it took 10 minutes, sometimes 30. But every week, it got easier. And every week, I felt more grounded. Emotionally, this small ritual gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time: clarity. I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't afraid to check my balance. I knew what was coming in, and I knew where it was going. Financially, I was able to redirect that extra $400 a month toward better things. I finally opened a high-yield savings account. I used part of the money to pay off lingering credit card debt, and part of it to invest in a course I'd been putting off for months. But the real reward wasn't financial, it was emotional freedom. I stopped dreading money. I stopped avoiding my inbox in fear of overdraft emails. I started feeling safe in my own life. That one lesson, tracking my spending with eyes wide open, wasn't about becoming a finance guru. It was about building a relationship with my money where I was honest, respectful, and in control. Now, whenever a friend tells me they're bad with money, I say the same thing. Start by tracking it. Don't try to fix it all at once. Just see it. That alone can change everything. Before reading Your Money or Your Life, I was always chasing the next financial milestone. If I can just get to $60K a year, I'll feel stable. If I can save up $10K, I'll finally feel secure. If I get one more raise, then I'll be able to breathe. But no matter what number I hit, the finish line kept moving. I thought I had a money problem, but really, I had an enough problem. I didn't know where my enough was, so I kept living like I hadn't reached it because, in my mind, I never had. One of the most powerful realizations I got from the book was this: enough isn't a dollar amount. It's a mindset. It's a choice. It's that moment when you stop chasing what the world tells you should have and start defining what you actually need to feel fulfilled. So I did something simple that changed everything. I sat down and wrote out what enough looked like for me. Not what Instagram said. Not what my coworkers had. Not what my parents expected. Just me. I listed what I needed to feel safe, nourished, connected, and joyful. I wasn't trying to be minimalist or frugal. I just wanted to be honest. Here's what that looked like. Rent for a small, clean apartment in a neighborhood I liked. $200. Groceries, not gourmet, but real food. $300. Utilities, phone, internet. $150. Occasional nights out or takeout, $100. Therapy sessions once a month, $100 versus Iption. Savings, emergency fund, $300. A little fun money for books, candles, or something silly, $105. That came out to about $250 a month. And suddenly, I had a real number, not just vibes and hopes. It was surprisingly freeing. Because once I knew what enough looked like for my real life, I stopped trying to impress anyone. I stopped overworking just to feel worthy. I stopped spending money to escape the exhaustion I'd created for myself. Now, here's where it got really interesting. Knowing my enough gave me the confidence to design my life around it instead of constantly inflating my lifestyle to match my income. For example, I used to take every freelance project that came my way, whether I liked it or not, because I thought I had to. But when I did the math, I realized if I can consistently make $500 a month, I don't need to say yes to every soul-sucking gig. So, I stopped. I started saying no to the work that drained me, and yes to the things that lit me up even if they paid less. I negotiated a more flexible schedule. I even experimented with working just 4 days a week. And guess what? I didn't fall behind. I moved forward. My stress levels dropped. My creativity came back. I had space to go for walks, cook meals, call my dad, and read books I'd been putting off for years. Emotionally, I felt like I'd stepped off a treadmill I didn't even realize I was on. For the first time, I wasn't chasing some vague version of success. I had defined my own enough, and I was living within it joyfully, not restrictively. And here's the surprising thing. I actually started wanting less. Not because I was forcing myself to cut back, but because I was more satisfied. When you know what enough feels like, you stop confusing more with better. Now, when I make a financial decision, whether it's a big purchase or a career opportunity, I ask myself, will this bring me closer to the life I already decided is enough? Or will it push me back into the cycle I worked so hard to leave? That one mindset shift, choosing to define enough for myself, brought me more peace than doubling my salary ever did. So if you're listening to this and constantly feeling like you're behind, like you haven't reached there yet, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what's enough for you? Not what's ideal, not what's aspirational, just what would make you feel safe, steady, and content. Because when you define your enough, you stop chasing and start living. And let me tell you, living inside your enoughly awake fully frees a kind of wealth that no paycheck can buy. If you had asked me 5 years ago what the purpose of money was, I would have said something like security, freedom, options. But honestly, I wasn't living any of those things. I was making money, but I wasn't making meaning. I was working to live, but not really living. And I definitely wasn't using money in a way that reflected who I really was or what I truly cared about. That all started to change when I learned a new way of thinking. Money is not the goal. Money is a tool, a vehicle, a means to a purpose. Sounds obvious, right? But until I read Your Money or Your Life, I never truly asked myself, what is the purpose of my money? And is it aligned with the purpose of my life? For the first time, I had to sit down and ask myself questions I'd been avoiding for years. What actually matters to me? What kind of life do I want to build, not in 5 years, but now? How do I want to feel when I wake up every morning? What am I using my time, energy, and money to move toward? Those questions led me to a hard truth. I was spending money trying to escape my life, instead of building the life I wanted to live. So I made some changes, not dramatic ones, not sell everything and move to Bali changes, but quiet shifts that realigned my money with my actual values. First, I sat down and created what I now call my purpose budget. It wasn't a spreadsheet full of rules, it was a reflection of what I wanted more of in my life. I wrote down 5 things I valued most: time with people I love, creating meaningful work, my physical and mental health, spiritual growth and stillness, contributing to something bigger than myself. Then I asked, is my money supporting those things? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. At least, not much. So I started small. Instead of renewing my 120-month gym membership that I never used, I bought a 40 yoga mat and signed up for free outdoor classes in the park. It was a better fit for me mentally and financially. I reallocated part of my fun budget toward books that fed my curiosity and toward creative tools that helped me start a side project I'd been dreaming about for years. I finally invested in a 90 mic and started recording my own podcast, something I never made time for before. And for the first time, I set aside a monthly giving budget, just $30 at first, not to impress anyone, not for a tax write-off, just because helping others brings me joy. That was the shift. I wasn't just tracking money anymore. I was using money with intention. I was finally asking, does this spending align with the life I want to build? It wasn't perfect. I still had slip-ups. I still bought things I didn't need sometimes. But now, instead of beating myself up, I'd pause and say, that's not aligned. That's not on mission. And I'd adjust, gently. The impact? Huge. I felt more alive in my day-to-day life. Even without making more money, I felt richer. Because my spending wasn't rando. It was rooted in who I was becoming. I started waking up with a little more purpose and going to bed with a little more peace. And you know what's funny? When you start aligning your money with your values, something amazing happens. You start living a values-driven life, not just a money-driven one. You stop needing validation from purchases. You stop numbing out with shopping. You stop chasing success defined by someone else. And instead, you build a life that feels like home. Now, whenever I earn a paycheck or get an unexpected refund or even just find a 20 bill in an old coat pocket, I ask, how can I use this to support the life I want to live, not the one I'm trying to escape? That, to me, is the real purpose of money. Not just to pay bills or gain status, but to fuel your purpose, to make room for the things that truly matter. And once you learn to align your money with your mission, everything starts to shift: your habits, your decisions, your peace of mind. It's not about having more. It's about finally knowing what it's for. Sometimes I sit on my couch quiet morning, coffee in hand, sun creeping through the blinds, and I look around at my life today. And it honestly feels like I'm living in a completely different world than the one I was stuck in just a few years ago. And here's the thing. Nothing flashy happened. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't become a millionaire. I didn't even change careers. But I changed how I live. And that changed everything. Before reading Your Money or Your Life, I was exhausted, reactive, and constantly overwhelmed by money, even though I was technically doing fine. I had a steady paycheck, an apartment, a car, but none of it felt secure. I always felt like I was one missed payment, one unexpected bill, one bad week away from losing control. Worse than the financial stress was the emotional numbness. I was constantly busy, constantly spending, constantly performing, yet I felt like I was watching my own life happen from the outside. That was the scariest part. I wasn't in my life. I was just surviving it. Now, I'm still not perfect. I still get stressed sometimes. I still mess up a budget here and there. I still have moments where I want to hit add to cart just to feel something, but those moments are fewer now. And when they come, I see them. I pause. I breathe. I ask better questions. I no longer see money as this monster in the closet I'm too afraid to face. It's just a mirror now reflecting my choices, my values, my energy. And when I look at that mirror, I don't feel shame anymore. I feel clarity. I feel power. My relationship with money is no longer about chasing morettes, about choosing better. I spend less, but I feel richer. I work fewer hours, but I feel more productive. I own fewer things, but I feel more whole. And perhaps the biggest shift? I trust myself now. I trust that I can make decisions that align with my values. I trust that I can say no to things that don't serve me. I trust that I'm no longer just reacting to life. I'm shaping it. And that's something money alone can't buy. When I look back at the version of me who sat in that Target parking lot, afraid to check her bank balance, feeling like life was closing in, I want to reach back and hug her. I want to whisper, "You're not broken. You're just disconnected." And the moment you start paying attention not just to the dollars, but to your heart, things will start to change. Because they did. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't linear. But step by step, lesson by lesson, I built a life that feels more peaceful, more grounded, more mine. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to have it all figured out to start. You just need to begin paying attention to where your money goes, to how it makes you feel, to what it says about the life you're creating. Because once you become conscious, you become free. And freedom real, internal, soul-level freedom is the most valuable return on investment you'll ever get. If you're listening to this and feeling some of the things I used to feel, tired, anxious, maybe even a little ashamed of where your money is going, I just want you to know you're not alone. I know what it's like to feel stuck in a cycle that doesn't feel like you. To wonder if it's always going to feel like this. To ask yourself, is this really all there is? Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me earlier. You don't have to make a massive change overnight. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect with money to start healing your relationship with it. You just need to be curious. You just need to pay attention. Start small. Start today. Maybe tonight. Maybe right after this episode ends. You don't need a financial advisor or a complicated app. Just grab a notebook or open your phone's notes app and write down everything you spent today. That's it. Just look. Without judgment. Without panic. Just get honest. Because awareness is where all freedom begins. And then maybe tomorrow, track your spending again. Or look at one category, just one, and ask yourself, does this reflect the life I want to live? If the answer is no, don't beat yourself up. Just listen to that answer. Let it guide your next step, slowly, gently, on your own terms. If you've been living on autopilot, this is your invitation to wake up not with fear, but with intention. To stop trading your life energy for things you don't even care about. To start building a life that feels like home internally and externally. And hey, if this story resonated with you, if you saw even a little bit of your own journey in mine, owe me a small favor. Share this episode with a friend who might need it. Leave a comment and tell me what part hit home. And if you want more stories like this, more real talk about money and meaning, hit that subscribe button. Because you and I, we're not just chasing money anymore. We're choosing life, one conscious decision at a time. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for listening to my story. And wherever you are on your journey, I'm rooting for you. Until next time, take care of your time, take care of your energy, and take care of your life. Because it's the only one you've got.